The research lab on orbital station Vega 6 floated quietly above the glowing curve of a distant gas giant. From the large observation windows, bands of purple and gold clouds drifted across the planet's atmosphere. Inside the lab, the lights were dim, the air cool, and the sound of machinery gave a constant gentle hum. Dr. Aaron Cole, a human neuroscientist, stood beside a sleek silver chair, his hands moving carefully over the neural link headset resting on the table. It was the latest in human-alien communication technology, a device meant to share thoughts, sensations, and emotions directly between minds. Across from him sat Korea, a young thrill female. Her skin shimmered faintly like liquid moonlight, her long silver hair tied back in a precise braid. The Thrill were known for their calm, logical minds. They valued discipline, control, and emotional silence. Smiles were rare among them, laughter almost unheard of, yet here she was, agreeing to take part in a human experiment that promised to share unfiltered experiences through a neural link. Aaron watched her with curiosity. Her silver eyes followed his every move with the stillness of a predator. But there was a quiet curiosity beneath that sharp gaze. He spoke gently. "Korea, you might feel unusual sensations during this test. Nothing will harm you." The translator embedded in her ear caught the meaning, but his voice, the warmth in his tone, carried something no translator could reproduce. She tilted her head slightly. "Humans often promise safety before doing dangerous things," she replied calmly. Aaron smiled. "Fair point, but I promise this is harmless." She slowly leaned back into the chair, her posture perfectly straight. Aaron placed the neural link headset over her head, its soft arcs of glowing blue light tracing along her temples. Her fingers twitched slightly as the device adjusted to her neural patterns. He activated the system, and a soft vibration filled the air. In that moment, Korea felt her mind open to a strange, wide space. It was as if she had stepped into a world without walls, where colors moved like water and sound seemed to breathe. The first wave of human memories came, sunlight filtering through green leaves, the faint crash of ocean waves, the laughter of distant voices. Korea's breath caught, her eyes narrowing. She had never seen an ocean, never felt the sun like that. For the thrill, sensations were filtered, controlled, experienced in fragments. But this was raw and alive then. Something different appeared. A strange ripple moved across her awareness, light and quick, like 1,000 tiny sparks brushing against her thoughts. She stiffened. "What is that?" Her voice sharp and defensive. Aaron leaned forward, watching her expression closely. "That Korea is called tickling." Her eyes widened slightly. "Tick-ling?" He nodded. "It's something humans do for fun. It makes us laugh." The sensation grew stronger. It darted through her awareness in unpredictable patterns, almost playful. Her jaw tightened. Her people were trained to maintain composure at all times. But the strange, feather-like feeling was harder to resist than she expected. A sudden sound escaped her lips, a short, sharp burst halfway between a gasp and something else. Aaron's eyes lit up. Was that a laugh? She immediately shook her head, covering her mouth with her hand. No, it was nothing. He smiled knowingly. "Laughter is good for you, you know, it means joy." Her expression hardened again. "The thrill do not laugh, it is undisciplined." Aaron leaned back slightly. "Maybe, but you felt something, didn't?" She hesitated, her gaze dropping for just a moment before meeting his eyes again. "It was strange, and it did not belong in my mind." But deep inside, Korea knew something else had happened. It wasn't just the sensation, it was the way it made her feel. There had been a lightness, a warmth, something alien to her entire culture. And for a single heartbeat, she had wanted it to continue. The hum of the neural link softened, but the connection remained. Aaron kept sending small bursts of the tickling sensation, testing how her mind reacted. Her breathing quickened, and she fought to keep her expression neutral. Her people would consider this a failure of control. Yet she could not deny the strange pull of the experience. Outside the lab's glass wall, the gas giant's clouds swirled slowly. The station floated in silence, unaware that inside, a small but dangerous change had begun in Korea's mind. Something had cracked, a barrier she never knew she had. She looked at the human in front of her, the warmth in his eyes, the strange comfort in his smile, and for the first time in her life, she wondered if there were emotions worth breaking. The rules for the session ended, but as she removed the neural link headset, she felt an odd emptiness. Aaron gave her a friendly nod. Same time tomorrow? She hesitated for a long moment before answering. Yes, her voice was calm, but her heart was not. She walked out of the lab with measured steps, her mind still carrying echoes of that strange, human-made laughter, and though she would never admit it, she was already looking forward to feeling it again. Korea returned to the lab the next day, her steps slow and measured. She told herself she was only here to complete the research contract, nothing more. But deep inside, a quiet part of her was curious about that strange human sensation that had almost made her lose control. Aaron Cole was already inside, leaning over the control panel. When he saw her, he smiled in that easy human way, the kind that seemed to carry warmth without any purpose. "Welcome back, Korea. Ready for round 2? He asked. She gave a short nod. "We will complete the test quickly," she replied, keeping her voice flat. Aaron chuckled softly. "We'll see about that." She sat down in the same silver chair, the one that seemed far too comfortable for a serious lab experiment. He adjusted the neural link headset over her temples, the faint blue light beginning to pulse as it connected to her mind. The moment the link activated, her thoughts brushed against his again, a strange, open field of mixed sensations. She could sense fragments of his morning, the taste of something bitter, the feel of cloth against skin, the faint warmth of sunlight on his hand. But then, he sent it. That same ripple of sensation she remembered from yesterday. It moved through her mind in quick, playful bursts. Unpredictable and light, she clenched her hands, her body stiff, determined not to react. "This again," she said sharply. Though the translator softened her tone, Aaron's voice came gently. "You didn't hate it." She narrowed her eyes. "I did not enjoy it either." But that was a lie, and she knew it. The tickling sensation grew stronger. It didn't just touch her skin and her mind. It wrapped around her thoughts, tugging at them. Like sunlight through cracks in a wall, warmth started seeping into her. Her jaw tightened, but her breathing grew uneven. She tried to focus on stillness, on control, but the sensation darted and danced too quickly, and then, without warning, it happened. A burst of sound escaped her lips. It was sharp at first, almost like a cough, but then it rolled into something else, something lighter, freer. Her silver eyes widened in shock, and her hand flew to her mouth. Aaron's eyes lit up instantly. "That was a laugh," he said with a grin. She shook her head firmly. "No, it was a reflex." But even as she spoke, another small burst of laughter slipped out, unplanned, unstoppable. Her cheeks warmed, an unusual reaction for her species, and she looked away quickly. Aaron leaned forward, curiosity in his voice. "Do your people not laugh at all?" Korea hesitated, her voice quieter now. "Laughter is considered a sign of losing control. The thrill believe emotion should be private, not displayed." Aaron tilted his head. "But you felt something good just now, didn't you?" She looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable, before finally whispering, "It was not unpleasant." The tickling slowed, but he kept the connection open. Through the link, he shared memories, scenes of human children chasing each other in grassy fields, parents lifting them into the air and spinning them around. The air full of laughter. Korea felt each one, the joy, the closeness, the harmlessness of it all. It was so different from the structured greetings and measured conversations of her own people. Her mind lingered on one image, a young human Girl laughing so hard she couldn't breathe. Her father holding her and laughing along. Korea felt something twist inside her chest. Not pain, not fear, something warmer. It was strange, frightening, but also beautiful. Aaron's voice came softly. Laughter can be a way of trusting someone. It's giving a part of yourself to them, knowing they won't harm it. Korea frowned slightly. That is dangerous, he smiled. Maybe, but sometimes danger is worth it. They ended the session after a while, when the headset came off. Korea felt the room colder than before. She stood, straightened her posture and said, "We will continue tomorrow." Aaron only nodded, though the corner of his mouth held a knowing smile. As she walked back to her quarters, she kept replaying the moment in her mind, the sound she had made, the feeling it carried, the warmth it left behind. She told herself it was only part of the experiment, nothing more. But in the quiet of her room, with no one to see, she touched her lips and wondered, what would happen if she let herself laugh again? The next morning, Korea didn't go straight to the lab. Instead, she walked through the glass corridors of Orbital Station Vega 6, her mind restless. The silver walls reflected her image back at her, but she barely noticed. Her thoughts kept returning to yesterday's moment, that strange, uncontrollable sound she had made, for the thrill. Control was everything. From birth, they were taught to hide emotion, to keep their faces neutral and their voices calm. But now, she had not only felt something unusual, she had expressed it. And worse, a human had seen it. Word traveled quickly on the station. When she entered the thrill dining hall, she could feel eyes turning toward her. A few of her people looked away politely, but others stared with quiet disapproval. Finally, Elder Vash, an older thrill with deep silver markings on his face, stepped toward her. "I heard," he said simply, his voice even, but the weight in his words was unmistakable. Korea's eyes narrowed. "Heard what?" "That you made a sound." Vash replied, choosing his words carefully. "A sound not proper for our kind." Korea kept her posture straight. "It was part of an experiment. It meant nothing." Vash's gaze sharpened. "Nothing can mean everything, Korea. Humans are careless with emotions. They spill them everywhere and call it living. We are not like them." She didn't answer, but his words followed her as she left the hall. When she arrived at the lab, Aaron noticed her silence immediately. "Something wrong?" he asked as he powered up the neural link. She shook her head. "We will continue the test." But even through the translator, her voice was cooler than before. The session began. The hum of the neural link filled the air. Aaron sent a wave of gentle tickling sensations, lighter than before. Korea's lips twitched, but she forced herself to remain still. "You're holding back," Aaron said quietly. She ignored him, focusing on her breathing. Then he changed the approach. Instead of sensations, he sent images, human gatherings, families laughing together, friends smiling over shared meals. Korea felt the warmth of it, but she also felt the judgment of her people in the back of her mind. "They say laughter makes us weak," she murmured without thinking. Aaron's voice came steady. "They're wrong. Laughter makes us human. And maybe it can make you more than thrill." Her eyes flickered toward him, through the link. She could sense his sincerity. It was not mockery, not manipulation, just a truth he believed in. But that truth clashed with everything she had been taught. The tickling sensation returned, weaving into the images. This time, it felt like being pulled into a dance she didn't know the steps to. Her mind wanted to resist, but her body betrayed her. A soft sound escaped her lips, not as loud as before, but still enough to make Aaron smile. "There it is," he said. She quickly looked away, her cheeks warming again. "You should not be pleased with this." "Why not?" he asked. "It's beautiful." They ended the session, but as Korea stepped out of the lab, she found two thrill officers waiting. One of them, Officer Zheln, spoke sharply. "You are ordered to report to the council." "Korea, your actions have caused concern." Her chest tightened, but she nodded. She knew this moment would come that evening. She stood before the Thrill Council in a tall, cold chamber of silver and glass. The elders sat in a semicircle, their expressions carved from stone. Elder Vash spoke first. "You allowed a human to provoke you into uncontrolled behavior," Korea replied evenly. "It was research. Research that undermines our values," another elder cut in. "This laughter has no place in Thrill Society." But as they spoke, Korea remembered the warmth of that moment, the freedom in that sound. For the first time in her life, she wondered if her people were wrong. She did not say it aloud, but the thought settled deep inside her. When the council dismissed her, she walked away in silence, but her steps carried a new weight and a dangerous new curiosity. Asterisk. The lab felt different that day. Korea walked in without speaking, her silver eyes steady but unreadable. Aaron noticed the faint tension in her shoulders, the way her hands stayed clasped behind her back. She had been called before the Thrill Council, and though she hadn't told him what they said, he could guess. "Are you sure you want to continue?" Aaron asked quietly. Her gaze didn't waver. "Yes," she replied. "But today, I want to understand why humans laugh." Aaron's lips curved in a small smile. "Then we'll go deeper." She sat in the chair, the neural link settling over her temples with its soft blue glow. The hum filled the room, and her mind opened to the familiar mental space, that strange field where their thoughts met. At first, Aaron sent only the tickling sensation. Light and quick, Korea's lips twitched, but she kept her control. Then he began adding something new, images. They came in fragments at first, flashes of sunlight, a child's face scrunching up in laughter, hands reaching out in play, the warmth of a blanket on a rainy day, the sound of someone's voice calling with joy. The sensations began to merge with the images. Korea could feel what he felt in those moments. The warmth wasn't just physical, it was trust, connection, belonging. Then the images began to sharpen. She saw Aaron as a boy, running barefoot through green grass, his father chasing him. She felt the sudden burst of tickling at his sides, the helpless laughter spilling out, and with it came a rush of emotion, pure joy. Safe joy. It poured into her like water filling an empty vessel. Her breath caught, and suddenly, her own memories began to stir, not from the human, from her. She saw herself as a child, sitting in the gardens of her homeworld, a breeze lifting the silver strands of her hair, her mother's hand resting gently on her shoulder. For a moment, she remembered a warmth she had forgotten, before training, before rules, before discipline had taken over her life. The memory shifted. She saw herself laughing, not aloud, but silently. It had been a moment of lightness, of happiness so simple she had never thought about it again. Until now, Aaron's voice came softly through the link. "You're remembering something." Korea hesitated, her voice quieter than before. "Yes, I think I used to feel this. Long ago. That's what laughter does," Aaron said. "It doesn't just happen in the moment. It brings back everything it's connected to." The sensations grew stronger. Korea felt herself caught between two worlds, the disciplined silence of her people, and the raw, open emotion of the humans. Part of her wanted to pull away, to close the link, but another part, the part she barely recognized, wanted to stay. The tickling now came not as an attack, but as an invitation. It wrapped itself around the memory of her mother's touch, the scent of the garden flowers, the faint hum of the wind through crystal leaves. For the first time in years, Korea didn't fight it. Her lips parted and a sound escaped, soft, warm, unguarded. It wasn't just laughter now. It was the release of something locked away for too long. Aaron didn't speak. He didn't need to. Through the link, she felt his quiet satisfaction, not of winning, but of sharing. When the session ended, Korea sat in silence for a long moment, before removing the headset. "This is dangerous," she said finally, though her voice lacked conviction. Aaron tilted his head. "Dangerous how?" She looked away. "If I remember too much, I might not be able to go back to who I was." He smiled gently. "Maybe that's the point." She left the lab, but the memories followed her that night. She dreamt of her childhood garden, and in the dream she was laughing, not quietly, not restrained, but freely, and when she woke, her heart ached in a way she could not explain. 2 days after their last session, Korea was walking through the station's central corridor when she felt it, the shift in the air. Thrill officers stood at the intersections, their silver uniforms sharp under the cold lights, every pair of silver eyes she passed seemed to hold judgment. She kept her steps measured, but inside, her mind was unsettled. When she reached her quarters, the door opened to reveal Elder Vash waiting inside. He didn't ask to enter, he was already there, standing like a shadow carved from steel. "Korea," he said, his tone flat but heavy. "The council has reviewed your conduct." She stepped inside, keeping her expression neutral. "And?" His eyes narrowed. "You are to end the human's experiment immediately. No further contact." Her fingers curled slightly at her sides. "The research is harmless." "Harmless?" Vash's voice sharpened for the first time. "You have allowed a human to infect your mind with undisciplined emotions. Already, others speak of you. Already your behavior is changing." She met his gaze, unblinking. "If it changes me, perhaps it is because there was something worth changing." The elder's face hardened. "Defiance is not a thrill virtue," he said coldly. But before she could answer, he stepped closer, his voice low. "End it, Korea, or the council will end it for you." That night, she sat in her quarters in silence. Her mind kept replaying the last session, the warmth, the memories, the way laughter had felt like breathing for the first time, the thought of never feeling. It again made something twist inside her. For the first time in her life, the rules of her people felt like a cage. The next morning, she walked into the lab without warning Aaron about what had happened. He saw it in her face immediately. Something's wrong. She sat in the chair. "The council ordered me to stop," she said simply. Aaron frowned. "And what do you want?" She hesitated, then met his eyes. "I want to continue." He gave a small nod, his expression unreadable. The neural link settled over her temples, the soft hum filling the air. This time, the connection was instant. No warm-up, no hesitation. Aaron sent the tickling sensations, but mixed them with memories again. Only now, the emotions were sharper, more vivid. Korea felt herself pulled deeper, the laughter coming quicker. It was risky, it was dangerous, and that only made it stronger. Through the link, Aaron's voice came quietly. "We don't have to stop, but it might mean trouble." "For you," Korea answered without hesitation. "Then we will be careful." And so an unspoken decision was made. The sessions would continue, but in secret. Over the next days, they met at irregular hours, sometimes late at night. Sometimes when the corridors were empty, the lab lights dimmed, the station outside silent. Each time, the link grew stronger. Korea laughed more easily now, not the short, startled sounds of before, but real laughter, and each time, the warmth in her chest lingered longer after the session ended. But secrecy could only last so long. One evening, as Korea left the lab, 2 Thrill security officers followed her down the corridor. She didn't speak, but her mind was racing. If they discovered the truth, the council wouldn't just end the experiment, they would exile her. She entered her quarters and sealed the door. Standing in the dim light, she realized something dangerous. She no longer feared the council's punishment as much as she feared losing what she had found. Laughter had become more than an experiment. It was a part of her now, and she wasn't ready to give it back. The days that followed were a careful game of shadows. Korea and Aaron no longer met at the same time each day. Sometimes it was deep in the night, when the station's corridors were silent and dim. Other times it was during shift changes, when the noise of moving crews masked their movements. Inside the lab, the lights were kept low. Aaron would lock the doors and mute the external monitors. They had become more than just researcher and subject. There was a quiet understanding now. Every time Korea sat in the silver chair, there was a flicker of anticipation in her eyes. And every time Aaron placed the neural link over her temples, His hands lingered just a moment longer than necessary. The connection between them was smoother now. There was no hesitation when the hum of the link began. Korea would feel his presence in her mind instantly. Warm, steady, familiar. The tickling sensations still came. Playful and light. But now they were mixed with things far deeper. Aaron began sharing more memories. Not just laughter, but moments that carried trust. A friend's reassuring touch. The quiet comfort of being with someone who understood you. Korea felt them all as if they were her own. Sometimes she laughed, sometimes she fell silent, but always she stayed connected longer than before. And Korea began to share too, at first. It was unintentional. Flashes of her homeworld's crystal gardens, the feel of wind over the silver lakes. But as trust grew, she let him see moments from her childhood. The rare days before her training began, when she and her younger brother would chase each other through the courtyards. The memory carried no sound of laughter. Thrilled children were taught to hide it, but Aaron could feel the joy buried in it. You were laughing inside, he told her once. She didn't deny it. The sessions became their own world. In the lab, she was not Korea, the disciplined thrill. And he was not Dr. Aaron Cole, the human researcher. They were simply two minds meeting in a place no one else could reach. But danger was always close. One night, as they ended a session, Korea's head turned sharply toward the door. She had heard the faint sound of footsteps. Aaron quickly shut down the neural link and dimmed the lights. The footsteps paused outside the lab before fading away. Neither of them spoke for a long moment. Finally, Korea said quietly, "They're watching." Aaron nodded. "Then we'll have to be smarter." They began moving their equipment. Sometimes they met in an unused storage room. Sometimes in an observation deck with the stars spread wide outside the glass. The link worked anywhere, as long as they had the portable power cell. And in those hidden corners of the station, the sessions grew even more personal. Korea's laughter was different now. It wasn't hesitant or rare. It came freely, almost unthinking. Sometimes she laughed so hard through the link that Aaron had to pause, smiling to himself as the sound echoed in both their minds. It was a sound he knew he would miss if it ever stopped, but with every meeting, Korea felt the weight of the risk grow heavier. The council's disapproval was no longer just a warning. It was a threat waiting to be carried out. She knew that if they were discovered, she could lose her position, her home, even her right to remain on the station. And yet, the thought of ending these sessions was worse than any punishment they could give her. One night, after a long session, Korea removed the headset slowly. Her voice was softer than usual when she spoke. "If they find out, I will be exiled." Aaron met her gaze. "Then I guess we just have to make it worth the risk." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The hum of the power cell faded. The stars outside drifted past in slow silence. Korea knew that whatever happened next, the line between them was gone. The secret sessions had changed her, and maybe him too, in ways they could never take back. The Grand Interspecies Conference was the most formal event held on orbital station Vega 6. Delegates from dozens of worlds had gathered in the central assembly hall. Banners of alien symbols hung high above the marble-like floor. Every seat was filled, every movement measured, every voice subdued. Korea stood with the thrilled delegation, her silver uniform perfect, her posture flawless. But inside, her mind was restless. Today, she was not here for politics. She was here to make a choice, one she had been avoiding for weeks. On the far side of the hall, Aaron stood with the human delegation. When their eyes met across the crowd, there was no smile, no nod, just an understanding that this could be their last moment together. The Thrill Council had made it clear. If she showed any sign of human contamination, she would be recalled home immediately. The conference began. Delegates spoke of trade, security, exploration. Korea listened, but the words were just background noise. Her thoughts kept circling around the truth she had learned. Laughter was not weakness, it was freedom, and she was tired of hiding it. When it was her turn, To speak on behalf of the thrill, she stepped to the central podium. The lights of the chamber reflected in her silver eyes. Her voice began steady, reciting the expected formalities, but halfway through, she stopped. Her gaze shifted toward Aaron, and she felt the familiar hum in her mind. She hadn't worn the neural link headset. That would have been impossible in such a setting. But the portable microlink was hidden inside the cuff of her uniform. A faint vibration told her he had activated it. And then, in the middle of her speech, she felt it. The tickling sensation darted into her mind. Light and playful, it was weaker than in the lab, but still enough to make her breath catch. She hesitated. The entire assembly watching, she could have resisted. She could have continued her formal address and pretended nothing happened. But instead, she let it in. The tickling grew, threading itself through her thoughts, and in front of the most important leaders in the galaxy. Korea laughed. It was not a small sound. Not a polite smile. It was full, bright, and real. The hall fell silent. Every thrill eye was wide with shock. The sound carried through the chamber, unrestrained, impossible to ignore. Aaron's lips curved in the smallest smile. He knew what it meant, not just for her, but for everyone watching. A murmur spread through the crowd. Some alien delegates looked confused, others amused, but among the thrill, the reaction was electric. Whispers of disbelief, outrage, and something else. Curiosity. Elder Vash rose from his seat, his voice sharp. Korea, control yourself. But she stood taller, her laughter fading into a steady voice. I am in control, she said. More than I have ever been. Her words hung in the air. And for the first time in living memory, a thrill had publicly challenged the belief that emotion was weakness. Some would call it betrayal. Others, though they would never admit it aloud, would remember the sound and wonder if they had been wrong all along. She finished her address without apology, her voice calm but unshaken. When she returned to her seat, the thrill around her avoided her gaze, but she felt no shame. The choice had been made, and she would not take it back after the session ended. Aaron found her in a quiet corner of the hall. You know there's no going back, he said. Korea gave the smallest smile. I know. They'll probably send you home, he added. Perhaps, she replied. But they can't take this from me. They stood in silence for a moment. The noise of the conference faded around them. Finally, Korea spoke. You didn't just make me laugh, Aaron. You gave me something my people never could. What's that? He asked. She looked at him, her silver eyes steady. The courage to be myself. Outside the station's glass walls, the stars drifted on in their endless dance, and somewhere deep inside the thrill ranks, a quiet shift had begun. A single laugh had cracked the foundation of an ancient silence.